We're going to be discussing those tiny little ants that drive you insane called ghost ants on this edition of the DIY Pest Control Podcast. Welcome to the DIY Pest Control Podcast, where you get the best info for those who want to perform their own pest control. The DIY Pest Control Podcast is brought to you by Nature Pest. Nature Pest has been providing the finest in commercial and residential integrated pest management for structural, lawns, trees, shrubs, and mosquitoes with better control and less contamination at an affordable price. For more info, visit us at naturepest.com. Hey, welcome back to the DIY Pest Control Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, and we're going to be discussing that tiny little ant that just drives you absolutely insane. You find it in your cupboards. You're going to find them crawling all over your counters. Just basically everywhere around your kitchens and your bathrooms, this little ant loves to be. And the reasoning is there's two things that it absolutely needs to be able to thrive, and that's water and glucose. It's heavily on glucose and sugars. So this pesky little ant, known as the ghost ant, the reason it's called the ghost ant because it looks like a little tiny body floating. You can't see its legs, and it just looks like it's floating over the surfaces. Very, very difficult to control if you don't know what you're doing. Most people will start out using sprays and hitting them with sprays, but if you don't understand the insect biology of ants and how these ants reproduce on a daily basis and when they lay eggs and how they nest inside your walls. There's a big difference between a trail of ants coming through a window and a nesting or infestation inside a structure. Once it gets inside and it's able to nest, then it's protected, then it has the food, then it has the water, it can thrive very easily inside a home. And usually by the time that you notice it, it's too late. It's already been nesting and creating that nest. And what these ants, these particular ants do, these ghost ants, is they multiply through budding, a process called budding. What they do is they'll build a nest, and then they'll get kicked out of that nest, they'll move away, and then they'll start their own other nest. And this process gets repeated over and over again to the point that you have sometimes dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of these nests, these little tiny nests in your home, and they start to really become a huge problem. And what it's going to take is it's going to take patience to get rid of them. These little ants are not going to go away with spraying. You need to stop the spraying. Whatever you're doing, don't spray, don't fog. Because what it'll end up doing is all you do is kill the workers, and the nest continues to grow, or nests, they continue to grow. And, you still will get the problem will become worse and worse. Their feeding habit is mainly glucose. So if you cut down on the amount of glucose that's available to them, sugar, anything that lays around that has sugar in it, whether it be bread, whether it be sweets, candy, anything, if you clean up really well, that'll help not compete with a lot of the products you're going to put down. Honeydew excrement from also plants that are up against the wall. If you have any shrub or any plant up against the wall of your house that has either aphids, mealybugs, thrips, whitefly, or scale, all these insects produce what is known as honeydew. Their excrement is nothing more than pure sugar that is processed through the insect when it sucks on the plant. So what happens is you create a breeding ground because they have a symbiotic relationship. The insect produces the sugar, and the ant goes and feeds on the sugar. So by treating the plants also and inspecting the plants, you will cut down on the ant population around a home. When we specialize mainly in outdoor pest control for lawns, trees, shrubs, palms. And what happens is we notice that the customers never have any insect problems when we are treating their property on a regular basis, because we deal with a lot of these insects that feed on the plants. So what do you need to do? What are your treatment options? Really the best thing for it is a glucose-based bait. And there are a couple of them on the market, and I'll explain the difference. The main one that you can find on your if you go to the store, you go to the supermarket, or you go to a hardware store or a home improvement store, is you can find a product called Taro. And Taro works on the ant because it has a lot of glucose. And they sell it either in the drops or they sell it in the stations. The problem with Taro and ghost ants is that they actually will consume it before they ever get back to the nest. So you will put out the product, you will see them trailing in there, you will see them feeding, they'll stay there for a while, and all of a sudden you find these stations full of dead ants. The reasoning is the ants died while feeding. The problem with the stations, as most people don't understand, is that if the ants die inside the stations, it corrupts the bait. It becomes rancid, very acidic, and the ants will no longer, after a while, feed on that bait. So if you put out a station and it does get full of ants, you need to replace the bait in that station and put a whole new station there. What I recommend is a product that we use in our professional business, and it's called Thickwood. Thickwood is by Entice, is made by Rockwell Labs. I have a link to it at the bottom of the page that you're on. And you can order that product directly. It comes in a little 4-ounce bottle. And the product is great because you can put it directly on the trails, either inside the house or outside the house. Put it along the trail, a couple of drops, about every foot, foot and a half on the trails. And then also, if you want to do it in there, you can just put on a little piece of plastic, a little plate, put it a couple of drops, stick it underneath the microwave, put it behind the microwave, the toaster, any area that you're finding these ants, they will feed on it. Also, if you can reduce it by 50% with water. So if you add a little bit of that and you add a little bit of water, you reduce it down to where it's a little bit not as thick, and it becomes more of a liquid. And then some of the ants can feed better on it. So you do it both ways. You put it whole as it comes and drops, and then also you would cut down the amount of product with water so that the ants can feed on it and take it back. And I find that combination of reducing it with water will make it. It's also a little bit thicker than the Taro is. The Taro is too liquidy. And the other problem with Taro is it becomes, after a couple of weeks, it becomes crystallized, and it turns into this crystal sugary powder that is, left there, and then the ants can't really feed on it anymore. The reason I like the Entice also is because the Entice is treated with a product that doesn't allow it to get moldy. And so it lasts longer. It doesn't become hard. It doesn't become crystallized. It's a superior product to what you find in over the counter in the stores with the Taro. The Taro is a fine product. It works well, but I think for most people, this is going to work a lot better. This is what we found. We used to use the Taro professional product in our business before. Then when Thickwood came out, we tried it and we found it works so much better for us. So that is our show for today. We hope that you have enjoyed it and that it does help you solve that little problem. It works on all different types of glucose feeding ants, so you can use it for many other sources of ants in your home, around on the outside. You can also put it in stations on the outside, and it works very well. So, hey, folks, we hope you've enjoyed it. And until next time, I'm Frank Hernandez, your host of the DIY Pest Control Podcast. Thank you for listening to the DIY Pest Control Podcast. Please remember that although Franklin Hernandez is a certified and licensed pest control operator in the state of Florida, the content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. You should consult your local and state government or cooperative extension service before performing any pest control service. Remember to always read and follow label directions, because the label is the law.